I'm Rachel, and this is an excerpt from my short story, Preserving Chestnuts. When I was 15, my aunt was in the Army. At least, that's what I imagined when we watched her commercial on television. Huddled in our living room, we saw her figure lean out of a top-floor apartment in Boston's North End and beckon her television son home for dinner, as if she were waving American planes onto the tarmac. Anthony, Anthony. Her voice rang deep, gritty. The announcer called for Prince Spaghetti, the slogan brimming with what felt like Auntie's call for John, her real son, a corporal in the 60th Air Commando Squadron, to come sit at the head of the table. Dad liked to say that after Auntie took her husband's name over 20 years ago, her name didn't sound very Italian. Mary O'Brien. My name, though fitting with my olive skin and curly brown hair, sounded like a cartoon character. Francesca Fellini, Frankie Fellini. Nicky used to joke it sounded so goofy that I would look good at the drive-in next to Donald Duck. Maybe I'd make the title shot with Sophia Loren if people believed I was related to Federico Fellini. Auntie would have hated it if I became an actress. Do something with those brains of yours, Frankie, she liked to say while I was at her apartment eating something, usually Fiodoni cookies or a piece of ricotta pie. She'd pinch my cheek, bloated with pastry dough, and screw her eyebrows up, the way she did when her Italian soccer team was losing. She would sigh, "Che faccia bella." I had been waiting to tell Auntie about my first job until we were alone. At Russell's Mart, the one off Atlantic Ave. We were sitting at her kitchen table, my head bent under the low hanging light. Auntie's apartment was the human-sized version of a mouse hole. Everything knit together. Couches skinned with sheets to block sunlight, the television wedged in a corner, tuned to the news, its antennas kinked like Auntie's hair at the end of the day. And 4 kitchen chairs were glued to the linoleum floor. Auntie was 41, Dad's older sister by 4 years. Widow to Uncle Sean, Auntie was still pretty. She was the type of pretty that made men hasten to open doors for her and producers pluck her off the street to be on television. I only noticed when her face relaxed and she looked unfamiliar, a beautiful guest in her own home. Without even trying, Auntie would have made a good actress. "How much are they paying you down there?" Auntie narrowed her eyes. She was tracing patterns in the sticky wooden table as she looked at me. $1.60 an hour. $1.60 for dealing with the loons in this town? Auntie called everyone a loon who wasn't Italian. "Here, I'll double that if you clean my basement." She got up for her purse. "You already promised that to Nicky." I paused. Not that he'll do it. Nicky milked his position as the eldest son in the family now that John was away. He got everything and did nothing. Auntie sat back down, money in hand. "Take it anyways." She took a couple Jordan almonds from a bowl in the center of the table and placed them on top of the bills. "What am I supposed to do with the money from the commercial anyways? Spend it on pasta?" "Thanks, Auntie." I gnawed on one of the almonds. I could never get just the sweet top coat. "You shouldn't be working, Frankie. Remind your father. Married to a doctor, lawyer, engineer." "I know. Auntie, I'm only 15. "I was 2 years older when I married your Uncle Sean," Auntie said. she stood and moved 2 steps to the stove to start dinner, a lemon-patterned dishcloth thrown over her shoulder. I ate another almond to keep from saying that she didn't marry a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, but an Army drum major. I went over to Auntie's the next day after work. She was stuffing chestnuts into an empty jar. I thought of the way she had saved coins for our cruise. Leaving a red lipstick mark, she gave me a kiss on the cheek, then motioned for me to sit down and help. I bought them from the supermarket this morning, Auntie said, moving the paper bag of chestnuts closer to me. Don't you think they'd make good presents? She pointed to one of the ribbon jars she had finished, crammed with chestnuts stuck together with sand. I nodded. Last night, I watched Auntie's commercial on television while waiting for Nikki to finish taking a shower. Auntie had told us she pretended she was Mary Tyler Moore all throughout filming, even when they brought in new boxes of tomatoes and pasta for each of the takes. Uneaten food she took home for dinner that night. The producers loved that. Authenticity right there, they said when I packed up the food, Auntie had said later. But really, they think I look young enough to be a 12-year-old's mother? And she didn't look young enough to be a 12-year-old's mother. She was pressed flat into the screen, her voice bending to the wrong sun. It was all wrong. The little boy with the curly hair was wrong, and the pasta plunged into the pot the wrong way. And Auntie kept smiling, even though I knew she was just filling her time with waiting for the wrong sun. I dropped one chestnut in the jar now. I think it cracked when it hit the bottom. Your father working today? Auntie asked. Yeah, Mama too. Auntie placed a fill jar to the side and started a new one. She seemed comforted by the motion. I thought of a question and bit my lip. Auntie, I said. She glanced up and smiled and looked like Dad. What did you want to be when you were my age? She paused for a moment. An artist. I like to paint the ocean. She went back to filling the jar. I also wanted to be a pilot, though. She laughed quietly. I smiled. I like thinking of Auntie as a pilot, flying across oceans by herself. She looked up at me then, fixedly, and she seemed like Auntie again. The one who filled up the streets of the North End with her voice. You need someone for security, though, she said. More than just money. I started to nod automatically and then stopped. I could see myself years from now, hair twisted up, Dr. F. Fellini combing through medical charts of patients who would come to me in some hospital, somewhere. Auntie sank back in her seat, placing chestnuts in the jar. I watched. I wanted to break the wait. I wanted John to come home, in a uniform or as a phone call. I wanted Auntie just to know, to stop plopping chestnuts into jars like she had in Italy as a girl, waiting for her turn to come over to America after Dad. I wanted to topple over the stocked jars of chestnuts that balanced on the table before us, for the glass to break and the pent-up chestnuts to tumble out. Gutted, open, to wrinkled caramel flesh, sand spitting out on top of them, like a gash without a tourniquet.